Not sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, so those. But lots of feelings.
Yes.
Do you guys? Is he really there? It was $100. It was unbelievable.
So the Wednesday night was for $10. It's just in here.
In addition to $10 and you know, has okay, but the strokes here. One. So. Oh, yeah, you buy them.
Thank you.
And it all.
Tip for me. Calling to order the October 6th, 2025 Easttown Township Board of Supervisors meeting. Everyone rise for the pledge of allegiance, please. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, the nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, first up, we have the consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve? Second, we have a second. Any items that the board wants to pull out? No. Any public comment? None, all in favor of approving the consent agenda, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Ayes have it. Moving on to board motions, presentations, and resolutions. First up, we have the library presentation, and they provide a valuable service to the community. I'm looking forward to hearing what they have to say.
Thank you, Eric. Nice to see you. It's fun to be on this side of the table. I don't think I ever realized how important the role you all play to support the library. I love the library. I love it even more now that I've been part of the board itself. We're very appreciative of Sean and his liaison and his ability to bring your message and take our message. I truly mean this. It's your library, it's your community, and it's your impact. It could also say our library, our community, but it is your impact that you make, as well as the friends and the foundation that support us. I'm joined tonight by Amber Osborne, our director, Vince O'Hanian, board member Stacy Rohrback, vice president of the board with me is Anita Friday and Margaret McKenzie. We're here just because we love the library. We are very, very appreciative of all that you have done in the past, and just want to show you what we have done briefly and where we need your support. This is just highlights from the past year, and while there's a lot of words up there, I just want to draw your attention to the fact that there were over 100,000 visits to our library, which is pretty amazing. Our circulation, the highest day ever, was July the 7th of this year. Don't know where you all were. Maybe you were at the library, because there were 1,182 physical items checked out.
Wow.
Maybe, were you there?
Few thousand.
Yeah.
And the other item on this I'd like to bring to your attention are the other service highlights. First of all, last year, your generous donation and increase to what you fund the library allowed us to have another full-time librarian and lessen that turnover, as we've talked before, how disruptive it is when we have part-timers or even full-timers that leave. And the other thing that we have done this year is we have instituted a stakeholder speaker series. And we did this for a couple reasons. One, building on what you all are doing for communication, we felt it was important, because people don't come to our meetings either, to let everyone know what the library does and perhaps where we're going in terms of future needs. And when better to start it than when we're in a very positive situation, people are using it, and it is the gem of the township. So we invite a community member, stakeholder to our meetings at the beginning. We ask them how they use the library, whether it's ours or somebody else's, and then how our operation works, our budget, circulation numbers, and where we think we may need their help in the future. So we started that in March, and we'll continue that through next year. Don was very helpful. He was one of our stakeholders that came as well. On to the next one. This is the fun part. These are our library financials, so it show our budget for this year, where we forecast to end the year, and the budget for next year. And while the writing is small, we're pretty much going to stay flat for the most part. We've asked for an increase, which is reflected here to $956,000. $956,000. You'll notice that the local government funding appears to be going down, and that's because it is. It's a formula, there's a pool of money, and while the state hasn't passed their budget, they're assuming it's flat. But it's all divvied up between the Chester County libraries, and this is the way the formula came out. So there's a slight decrease, but you can see our susceptibility, should any of those revenues change, that would be the number that would change if anything gets decreased. Not all of it, but perhaps some of it. What's going up next year for us is which is good for revenue, are our charges and our fines and our overdue expenses that people pay. But most of that is because our passport service is doing so well. We are very, very happy to have our friends in our foundation, which you can see on that line. They'll continue to contribute over $140,000. So it's more than just your support, it's the community that also does that. When we look at expenses, we're pretty much staying flat in terms of where we're going to end the year. It's pretty much on budget. We're going up a little bit based on personnel costs and things related to personnel. And looking ahead for next year, one program that has really taken off is our makerspace, and we are trying to make sure we have a great foundation to continue to offer as many things that we can in that world, as well as have space for that and increase hours. Through our community work or our stakeholder work, we have had great dialogue with school district representatives and others to figure out what else we can do to help the library facility, help those needs of our patrons. I skipped over the MRS design. We're going to work with them. As we told you last year, we believe we have outgrown our space. It's 20 years old. There's a lot of programs that are just squeezed with attendance, and we're embarking on a needs assessment. So we spent the year with Amber's help and the facility committee at the library, putting together an RFP to talk to those companies that do such a thing. We pretty much have landed on MSR. We're working on the details of the cost. It's a 10-week to 3-month study. They'll conduct interviews. You may all be asked, so we can get, rather than just anecdotal of what we believe we need, it should tell us what we need. And that is the most exciting thing I think we can do, and keep the library as vibrant as we can. We'll look ahead 3 to 5 to 10 years. 10 years is tough, but here we are 20 and there's been no change to the building. So we're hoping to come back to you with periodic updates on where we are, talk about the support you may be able to give us or what we think we're going to do. There'll be different phases of the study where we will be able to kind of determine what we're going to do or where we want to go on or how big it's getting. So it's not a carte blanche to them to say, give us everything. It's going to be very mindful in terms of what we can do and what we think is feasible with this community. Our strategic plan was passed last year. There are 5 goals, initiatives, and we'll continue to work on them. They're laid out there: connecting community, championing literacy, providing an exceptional facility that houses everything we need, being accessible to all, and operating efficiently. So with that, I'll open it up for questions. We appreciate your support, and if you can get us that number, we greatly appreciate it. And I'll go on to the next of what to look ahead. We'd like to come back maybe mid next year. We know that's about when you'll know the EIT breadth of what it's going to result in funding or revenue for the township. And while we believe we're going to be in a capital campaign mode, we'd like to talk to you first about what share or what you'd like to contribute with us if we have those numbers. But even without that, we'd like to make a pitch to perhaps have a capital fund put aside where dollars that would need to come from you to take care of the outside of the building even before any renovations, so that we don't come back and say, we need a roof this year, you have it in your capital plan. We are working with Alex, Sean for next year, but these would be bigger ticket items. So if you're open, we come back whenever you're ready, or send us to ECAC or wherever you'd like us to go. So with that, are there any questions?
I don't have any. I appreciate what the library does, and thank you for
Is it,
sharing with us again all the work you guys do.
is it per capita the most visited library in all of Chester County?
Amber, I'll turn to you.
I don't know that
I
statistic.
thought it was.
Yes.
I thought it's the most visited library in all of Chester County per capita.
Well, that's amazing then. I didn't know that we had that. That we called that statistic.
It's only exceeded in visits by Tridifferent, and it's only like, they get like 20% more visits than we do, I think, but we're
Tiny.
4 times smaller than they are.
Right,
So
right.
it's very heavily utilized. It's like you said, Betsy, it's a gem of the township.
It is. And we are fortunate to have the staff and Amber's leadership there, but the community uses it, and I know they greatly appreciate it.
And I think you told a story of one of the meetings like 6 months ago, there was a huge power outage and it was like middle of winter time and there were people coming to the library to charge a phone, you know, get some heating and stuff for a little while. So it's a cool gathering space too.
So, thank you.
On
Michael.
the study, are you just looking at it, the current states, or are you thinking, you know, others staying or expanding? Are you thinking about locations in the township? Or is it just one location?
Well, we haven't had any conversation with them, but I have to say, my opinion, and I don't want to speak for anybody else, is we're trying to stay on our property. We're not looking to go to another location.
I'm not talking about maybe add another location.
Oh, we didn't even come up with that. I think we're trying to be very neutral in terms of what their solution is that we're gonna come up with. We think there's space perhaps inside the building we can recapture. We don't know if they're gonna recommend going up. We don't know if they want the courtyard. We will certainly come back to you. We know the constraints of that property. We have spoken to the school district, and they know what we're doing. We haven't asked them to commit to give us anything, but we don't have anything to show them in terms of our actual need, other than we know that we need it, but we will be back.
Okay, great.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, next on the agenda is the omnibus amendments. Andy, do you want to walk us through that?
And this one is ready for final action. We discussed it at the drafting stage and at the advertising stage at the last meeting. So this essentially codifies what was a temporary every 6 months to a year resolution on the outdoor dining. So now that will become part of your ordinance. And then for the first time, the code would also allow for meadowing, which would be an exemption from the typical tall grass nuisance piece if it's being grown and cared for and cultivated well. So those are ready to go. I know the board and the planning commission too have talked about potential future amendments down the road. And if you pass this tonight, none of that precludes later legislative action if you're interested.
I'll make that motion. Second.
Second.
Any board comments or questions?
Did we pass it tonight? When does it go into effect?
Under the ordinance, I think because we drafted it some time ago, it would be within 5 days. But there is a new revision of the second class township code that going forward, we can now pass those and have ordinances effective.
Any other board comment? Any public comment? Seeing none, all in favor of approving the motion, say aye. All opposed? I saw it. Moving on to MTF sidewalk inspection.
Yeah, I'll set it up and I'll let John talk to you about it. So we try to keep the consultants on a relatively short leash for the PSA. When they come back to us for more, we bring that to you. So John will talk to you about the reasons for why they're coming back to you for a small amount more.
Sure, so tonight's request is a $4,000 increase to the PSA from Bowman Engineering. They're doing your site inspection and project overview for phase 1 and phase 2 of the Devon Train Station MTF project. We're having a few complications with the contractor for the first phase, which is what the work that's already largely 98% complete, which is in front of the post office and near Berkeley and Waterloo. There are a handful of small punch list items that we're waiting on. This is gone over about 3 months on very small items now, but it still requires Bowman's work to keep everything compliant to PennDOT standards. So tonight's ask is for an increase of $4,000 to that budget line, so that the inspection services continue and we close out this project. At the same time, I'm trying to have a meeting with Andy and his team to see if it's possible to hold this against the contractor. So, belt and suspenders on it, trying to see if, the first ask is to cover the cost, and the second one is, internally, we're gonna look to see if this can be, charged back against, the contract itself. So we're trying to protect you on both fronts.
Why do we have to incur this cost? We're trying, like,
So this is the inspections to make sure everything's up to, PennDOT standards, construction standards for the project. So there were some things that had to be re-poured, realigned, repaved. And this is the on-site services that Bowman provides with their engineers. So we incorporate that into each of these projects.
What was the original contract for them, for Bowman?
I believe it's 10,000 total for that phase of that project.
Is that 50% of it or 40% of it?
Yeah, it's been a lot of back and forth, unfortunately, with this contractor to try to get the final items done.
And why do you think it'll be phase two? Is it a different contractor?
It is. So phase 2 went to Plymar. They were the lowest responsible bidder, and I have a longer history working with them. The original contractor on the first phase was the lowest, met all the requirements as the lowest responsible bidder, but
The second one's not on a state highway either, which these complications, sizable amount comes from the
And then
state highway.
we have to bid this, there's no, what is that thing called? Where we can just buy the services. Co-stars, there's no co-stars for this kind of work.
not for sidewalks so much. For paving, you can do that. You can buy the asphalt straight from the plant, and then you're just paying for basically labor and vehicles, equipment. But for sidewalks, there's less things for
Yeah,
that.
we have to bid it. Okay.
is there a way to recoup this cost?
So we haven't paid the first contractor anything yet. They've not submitted an invoice, and we're gonna go through the contract and see if there's what liquid damages are allowed to be assessed. Originally, we had I believe, June 30 deadline for the project, so there's some windows of opportunity for they're at least ready for discussion. And Andy will inform me at a later date whether they're gonna be worth the squeeze or not.
So, all right, so if Andy, you're aware, and you'll.
Yes,
The township
we'll
pursue it.
together.
Okay, well, I mean, it's an important project and, worthy of the cost, in my opinion, and hopefully we can recoup whatever fees we may have. Just lost on the initial contractor. Do we need do this by consensus? Do we need a motion?
Some kind of motion, something that the minutes reflect that you authorize the
I'll
extension.
make the motion to approve the $4,000 in change order.
Second.
Any other board comment? Any public comment? Hearing none, all in favor of approving the motion, say aye. All opposed, let's have it. Okay, moving on to departmental reports. Were there any items that either staff or the board wants to pull out?
I like to say that's up for you, the trash and the EIT were the big things that I chose to report to you. So if you have questions about them, let me know.
Have you had any calls about the trash?
Yeah, we got a decent number of calls. Sir, are you here for the trash? Are you, no? Okay, so there were a decent number of people who said that they were gonna come to the meeting and talk about it. So those 4 items that's my assessment of it. Some decent number of people saying the can size is too small, some people upset at the cost of the second can. Some people upset at the rising price, but that you get every time you. And then little one for us, private road, public road, the contract flushes things out, things that you didn't know. So one of the things that it flushed out was we got to sort of uniformly treat the private road, the public road, private road interface the same way. So just forcing us to check on that a little bit.
All right, I guess unless anyone has anything they want to add, we can move on to regular business, budget workshop number 3.
Sure.
It's a pessimist.
Okay, so there's the schedule, nothing new there. And then tonight, I just want to tell you a little bit more about capital. Make the millage and EIT adjustments that we talked about at the last meeting. At no point do I expect or do I think you want to go through line by line on the budget. If you want, you can get as particular or granular as you want. But I do think it's important to go fund by fund with the key distinctions in each fund. And then what to expect, what are the expectations, what are the considerations for next time? So if it's okay, Susan, the next slide on capital. So it's really a recreation of the last one. The little item to the right isn't intended for you to read that line by line, but you've got one in your packet. That's what, if you want something in the budget, it has to get into that list. It goes from that list into your budget. If there's something on there that you don't want, you've got to take that off. So we put on pumps and curbs and roof repairs, those sort of boring things that you have to have. You put on buildings and trails and parks and things of that sort. So everything that is in there because it's our understanding that you told us to put it in there. Absent are the lists that you get from your ABCs unless you direct us to make those changes. Okay, so comfortable with capital, anything brewing, any particulars that you want to talk about?
Don, I think we brought this up last time, the renovation of the park equipment, like playground equipment. It was in this current year's budget, we didn't necessarily spend it, so how does that work? Is it getting rolled over? It could be.
No, there's no rollover, every budget is a new budget, so, you know, there's a modest amount for that type of thing, not as much. And then there is the focus on there's a concentrated discernible amount for the Sharps Woods access project for the parks.
And how much do you have in here for the playground equipment then?
Probably like on the order of 20 to 40 sort of thing.
Okay.
Yeah, so if, you know, that's one where if there's a particular thing you want, now is the time to see that it's adjusted. Okay.
Yeah, my sense would I would like to replace both of them, at Johnson Park and at Hilltop Park, and it probably is gonna be, you know, significantly more than
Yeah,
that.
but significantly more, you want to think about doing it in the bond issue.
Right.
That, so that becomes part of, that lends itself to it being part of the 2026 initiative.
Right.
Bond initiative. Okay, next slide, Susan, please. Okay, so, on the right is that's the millage adjustment, we talked about that, that the board's majority wanted a 10% reduction for next year. So the placeholder budget reflects a 10% reduction, that's your millage. If you recall, we kept the library the same because that's what you had decided, so the library's millage stays the same, the others come down. And that represents a net 10% reduction in millage, that's the revenue associated with it. In this budget, what you're assigning the revenue by reducing the millage. And then you're using the earned income to fill in the difference. So this is the use of the earned income tax to make each of those budgets balanced. And what that's gonna give you is around 675,000. If the predictions come in the way we are predicting them at this point, that's gonna give you about 675,000 in surplus that will be reserved in your general fund. In part, because that's what you told us you want, how you wanted it done.
Do these numbers reflect what the library asked tonight? Or
Yes.
They do.
Yeah,
Okay.
yes. The only part that might not be, this was made like 2 days before we got the final, which I put in my report. So the last quarter EIT was discernibly less than the previous quarter EIT. And you can't really make a trend like you get to draw a line with 2 points, but you don't have a lot to, you don't have a lot, so I've got a safety factor in there. You know, I've got decent comfort that you can achieve the 4.68 million one, but you only had 2 data points. So that's, I guess it's a little bit of a lesson for caution that this isn't so, you know, you gotta have some caution there. You can't, two things, you can't spend it before you have it, you know you have it. And you can't commit it to something that ultimately you're gonna use to pay the debt service, you know, to achieve the thing that you have told us that you want. You're likely gonna have to borrow next year to do that. You need to be able to pay the debt service on that. So the debt service is gonna be north of, you know, approaching $1.1 million sort of thing. So you have to be able to, you can't obligate the money only to find that you now can't pay for the debt service. Okay, any questions about EIT and millage? Next slide. All right, so all I'm gonna do now is just go through real fast, real high level. Still very general. What are the big things in the general fund? Well, obviously, the general fund, the biggest thing is the tax shift from the real estate tax to the earned income tax. That's a dramatic change in how you get your revenue. We made a little minor adjustment, like we found some things that, there are 2 things where you used to pay a fee and now you pay a subscription and the cost went up considerably. And so, you know, Tyler Tech costs, we weren't paying for uniformly. So you have one minor negative variance in your year to date, so we made an adjustment to that. The police salary, so obviously police is it's a big part of your budget. Police salary is expensive. You have 2 new officers and an unsigned CBA, so there's some, you know, there's some risk and uncertainty and some costs associated with that. And then healthcare is a combination, so healthcare, pensions, and salary drive your costs in just about everything. Healthcare is very expensive. What you're seeing is you're gonna pay less for these employees in 2026 than you, in 25, you're gonna pay less than you did in 24 because of the renegotiated, we didn't bank those savings, we had to see them before and also because that deal wasn't finalized until after the budget. So this budget reflects the higher cost prediction. The next budget, you'll see those savings. So you'll see sizable areas of healthcare where you're paying less in 26 than you were in 25. That's because the adjustments you made to the healthcare plan. Police are on the same healthcare plan, so you'll see the prices go up by about 10%. So sort of a mixed signal with that. Questions about the general fund? Next one, okay, solid waste has some big changes, obviously. Biggest thing is the contract service. We're looking at about an 8 to 9% fee increase, which is in the placeholder budget. The contract cost is more than 9%, it's closer to 16%. But you had transition costs and you had to pay for this quarter a little bit also. So last year you had some of this year's increase was embedded in this year's budget. You've got special services, you just talked about the shredding event. That was one that wasn't budgeted. It's now budgeted, so that presents a marginal increase. The crest line, that was another one where we were, the cost wasn't, it shifted from a fee to a subscription. The price went up considerably and the budget didn't reflect the change. So now we have it adequately reflected and reflected in the same way about the trash fund. So
What is Crestline?
Crestline is the company that manages the trash and sewer billing and the software for the trash and sewer billing.
Do you pay them for the mail?
Yes. So that if you look in the placeholder budget, you'll see 2 small items that have a $12,000 line item that went to 21. It's to reflect that change.
You still mail 3,500 bills a month, right? For a quarter, right?
Yes, whatever number of customers you have.
Right. We need to do something to get to an online bill, so that,
Okay.
I know we have supported, but we, you know,
Yeah, and
it's ridiculous that we're spending that much money.
Yeah. so not between now and January,
No.
right? Not between now and November with this,
No,
so.
there's something.
And that's, you know, on the list, a little ECAC list of projects, that's one that, I'll share with them. That was also streamlined.
Right.
Yeah, that's,
Ideally, it would be I could give an account with these down.
Yeah.
You get a bill for everything.
right, it's not just.
But then you can do it online, you don't. All that
Yeah. And then the, you know, the TBD item, I only put TBD because the decision won't be finalized until you pass the fee schedule. So right now in the sewer, or rather in the trash contract. If a person wants a second can, there's a 35% markup on that second can, so you're paying the vendor a markup for the additional activity. What we discussed, the last one was you wanted to pass that markup on. Some people are objecting to that, some people would say that you should mark it up at all, some people would say you could mark it up less. That's a policy choice for you. One of the things that people are saying to me is that you shouldn't mark it up. And I'm saying, well, that's a supervisor decision, so,
Is this a one-time cost markup?
Well,
no, that would be a monthly cost,
So monthly markup was 35.
Right.
about $40 for it.
And I really have a problem with it because some people have busy Thanksgiving, busy Christmas when they need it, and they don't have it the whole
So,
year.
so that we think will get taken care of, that, the contractors have indicated that that won't be an issue, like they've realized that the holidays are the holidays. And so we'll get the stuff collected, that's what they're committing to us, and we're
Right now, like,
we don't get into the how with them, they just, we had this exact discussion with them. And they said, don't worry about the holidays in our industry, that's the way it rolls, we will get the holiday stuff out.
okay, and they said they would recycle their whole
Yeah,
trash
very good,
cans.
fair enough,
So I don't trust that they will do it, I want to know how
Okay.
they're gonna do it.
very good, and then the second item with this is, you know, this is a little bit of a pivot in that I hadn't thought of it before, but you have always had scenarios where somebody is putting out not municipal solid waste. So somebody is putting out something that is beyond, so typical ones are like a basement clean out, a move, sometimes people move and they'll put out, they'll literally cover the whole street. Most common, we get the, you know, the paints and the chemicals and appliances and things of those sorts. Literally somebody cut down a tree and put a tree up, so there was a branch that was, you know, 28 inches in diameter, all stacked, and they were like, that's yard waste collected. And we said, no, that's not yard waste, and they said, okay, my bad, we'll get that out. So the difference here is that, I don't think I think everybody's settled on the 150 feet by 6 foot pile of stuff. But it's the 15 foot by 6 foot pile. So, one remedy is the contractor can have like a bag price where when you're having that special event where you have extra, you pay a small amount extra for that. That's one remedy. Another remedy is you pay the 35% markup. Another remedy is you pay some fraction of the markup. You know, that would be your choice. There's an element of caution now because both contractors assured us that people are going to be surprised at how much stuff they can fit in a container. And so a sizable number of people say, I must have a second can. We'll say, no, I'm good with the one can. So right now, what we're planning for is mid-October. So just really next week, we're looking at 8 days now. We'll start the process of signing up for the second can with the expectation that the cost of the second can is 35%. If that number is 200, that's different than if that number is 80. You know, so right now, we don't know what that number is. So there's an element of waiting to see what that.
Was it for public? Was it anything?
Yeah, because there's a different model. Remember, they were just driving down the street and you could throw everything.
That's true.
There was some soft
language in the calendar about container size, but you've never had a spec that indicated the amounts. So neither Waste Management nor Republic. This is the first time we put the number in the spec, and we put the number in to protect against.
So the resident buy trash can has the same dimensions.
Yeah, so it's not the can, it's the service. So they could buy it, but they wouldn't pick it up. So you're paying them for the service. And for the.
I think that is.
That's what you said last time, or you as a group said last time, so that's what it is until you tell us otherwise. Nothing's changed on our end. Yeah, I would say a little bit's changed, like, the people who are opposed to it are fervently opposed to it and strongly emotionally opposed to it, and earnestly opposed to it. But we don't know that the number is gonna be good. Meaning, it's possible the number could just be what both contractors said, you're gonna have 6 to 8 people who can't fit into a can. And then you're making a business decision about whether maybe you choose to reduce that markup because the number is so small. So
Number to be small because the markups. So
exactly, yeah, but isn't that purposeful? Isn't that what it, like, the idea
No,
is
I'm
to
just saying.
match the cost
Yeah, we
to
could,
the service?
we could set it to 35% and we get 8, right? And then we say, no, we'll just, we reduce it to 0, and then we get 250.
So doesn't that sort of like you could meter it down? There's a lot of,
Yeah, there's a lot of.
when you have data that, when you have a sense of how many people insist they have to have a second can, you can make a better choice about that than you can. Right now, the second can costs 35%, and that also keeps your contract balanced. So that means your fees match your costs. Okay, enough on that one. All right, solid, move on. Fire fund, this is the least certain of them all that you got going. So you have inflation adjustments and you have 4 new employees at the fire, the BSC, we talked about that. That's all good, nothing needs to change there. It's not quite sure whether, it's not quite sure what the role of the fire administrator is gonna be. It's not, there's uncertain staffing that hasn't even been resolved at the work group, much less to this point. At this point, it doesn't have to be terribly specific. It just has to be enough to provide you some flexibility to, you don't have to know the exact amounts. We just have to have it enough in there to give you that flexibility. So right now, the placeholder has enough for you to make business decisions on what you want to do. Does it have every penny? Well, that depends upon what you do. And so that's a bit uncertain. I've got another budgeted surplus in there that's for this fund because you're expanding the role and it's so uncertain. So it's got a modest surplus for to build the fund balance. The truck did come out. So last time I told you that everything that was in was what you previously put in. You previously put a truck in. The work group had determined that that the truck isn't necessary yet or now. So that has come out of the placeholder budget that you see before you. So uncertainty high, you've got fire departments are indicating that they have additional operational costs that they want you to pay. They're indicating additional capital costs. They're indicating additional staffing needs. And then your inspector is uncertain. If you recall, the group wants to hire a fire inspector. You also have to make your peace with the difference between you have very little commercial property in Easttown. And the inspector is, for all intents and purposes, going to be inspecting commercial property. So if you share that in the same manner, then you're basically subsidizing the inspector in different. It's not a huge amount of money. It's particularly because you're paying 30%. But we just have to, if it's decided that that's what they want, then we have to know what those numbers are, and you have to understand those numbers before you vote on anything. And nobody can do that now because all of that's uncertain. Questions, comments, fire fund, Susan, Mike, anything to add? Hope I captured it correctly.
on the fire thing, we're still waiting for Trevor to get back to us. We presented our stuff, so.
On the agreement,
Yeah,
Yes.
so it's even more uncertainty than.
yes,
Yeah.
there's a lot of uncertainty in the fire. Okay, next, Susan. Library, not a lot of uncertainty, you got the inflation adjustment, you got the constant millage that's settled, you had talked about that last year, repeated it this year. This is kind of good for us, that the library budget is balanced for the first time, so it was imbalanced negatively for a while, which meant it had to be imbalanced positively for a while. It's now balanced, and it's also liquid, so for the first time in 3 years, you won't have to borrow money from one account to pay the library in February. So, happy about that, yeah, okay. Park fund is a little thing, it doesn't change much, it's hardly worth talking about, so it just went up by inflation oriented amounts.
Sharps Woods?
Well, yeah, so Sharpswood's moving along, but it's not requiring any more money than it's got the same modest amount that it had this year. In capital, it has its own dedicated project.
Like this for mowing and stuff. right?
Yeah, for operational, it has the same amount of money that it had this year, correct?
And this is like the July 4th, so there's money in there.
Yeah, it went in for all of those things, and nothing's changed because you didn't tell us to change them, so,
Do you adjust them for inflation? Like,
yeah, things are adjusted that way, but nothing comes out unless. If you decide you want a concert series, you have a concert series until you tell us you don't want it anymore. Same thing, nothing goes in until you tell us you want something new. So everything's adjusted to reflect actual costs, inflation. Little things when they come up, but that one's barely changing.
Third key group.
Yeah, very good. Sewer fund's the exact opposite, it's got the most change. So first is you've got the VFSA borrowing, that's $4.5 million plus or minus. Some of that is for some projects that you're doing, but the lion's share of that is the VFSA capital. That's gonna increase your debt service by about $340,000. You have the bond redemption improvement fund. So this is the first time that you put money into it. You've had the fund for a while. It's just been dormant for 10, 12, 15 years. So aligned to what was said earlier about the library, aligned what was said earlier about that when you have assets, you should be building funds to maintain those assets. So the BRI has probably about 250,000 in it. You know, we're targeting 75 to 100 per year. At some point, 2 to 3 years from now, you know, they'll make a business decision about how to use those funds to maintain the system. You've got a contract increase to Aqua, that's a big one, that's 386,000. So you have when you shifted from the Tredyffrin trunk sewer, the Valley Creek trunk sewer that you all own together, that Tredyffrin operated, to the Aqua trunk sewer, you signed an agreement. That agreement had contractual step increases. This is the last year of the contractual step increase. And that's not chunk change, that's on the scale of your budget, that's a move the needle kind of thing. So you'll see that this year. Crestline, same thing, that's a little thing, but you'll see two little line items that go up. They might double from 2,000 to 4,000, that's because we're capturing Crestline accurately. And all of that's done with about a 7% increase is the estimate right now. And that's aligned to a year and a half ago, Alex, when we went to at the EMA, this is aligned to, it's aligned with the prediction, meaning what we thought it would be, where we thought we'd have to go.
Agreed.
And then this is a positive part, we'll end on a positive note. This is the first time that you have steady state going forward. Because what you've had for the last 10 years, you had the debt service that you inherited or that we all inherited that was sort of built for step fold increases at the end. You had the contract that had the step fold increases, and then you had the unexpected increase of the Berwyn force main. So when you add all those together, you couldn't get steady state because your expenses were increasing in a stepwise, not marginally by inflation, big chunky numbers like the 386. Everything in the sewer fund, including your debt service, is now smooth going forward. So, you have, catastrophe could set that, off. And we don't know what if Aqua could somehow convince the PUC to raise rates, that would change things too.
That's what I was gonna say, the Aqua's out of that contract now, so they can go to
Well,
PUC.
I would be shocked if they can unilaterally raise the rates, so.
No, but they can go to PUC.
Yeah, and we don't know the exact mechanism that would happen, but you have no recourse against them saying you owe us $386,000. Next year, it's hard, and going forward, they have to find a different mechanism to do that.
We would be invited to PUC because.
Presumably, Andy would know
Yes,
more
you
about that.
participate.
Right.
And you've got about a dozen municipal bodies all part of that, trunk
Yeah,
line.
and
But also the BFSA could say, well, this $30 million thing went well, let's do a $60 million thing. I'm not saying they would.
yeah, you could have that. Now, I will say that, I think that's unlikely because we've been involved in, to me, it's a legit 10-year plan that they got, so.
Mhm.
What they're communicating to us is this is their capital demand on you, over the next 10 years.
Right, one other thing, at the last meeting, EMA meeting I went to, there was some concern about I&I still, and I know we did a big project for that, but do we have any money set aside to do?
Yes, that's one of the projects that's in the 4.5 million is to continue the I&I.
Because it seems like we still have a lot to do.
Yes, yeah, you'll never not have that, that'll be an ongoing thing. Okay, so that's a lot of changes happening in the sewer fund. And those changes are 2 years in the making. I mean, you started this with the VFSA last summer. So. All right, next. Capital just has, all I did was pick the 3 projects that are the biggest. The U-shaped corridor, that's got 800,000, that's the sidewalk. The Berlin sidewalk. It's not unexpected, that's aligned to planning level costs, that's what these things cost. We've got 250 for the building, so the expectation is that circa December, you'll agree to a conceptual diagram, a block diagram, you'll know the budget cost of that. And then in 2026, presumably you would borrow the money to build that. In the meantime, there's $250,000 for you to get the design going. That should be a year's worth of design, that's the expectation. MS4 is expensive for you, it's been 300,000 a year plus or minus. Next year, we only have 50 in it. Because it's just uncertain what that best project should be. And so next year, it's sort of back to planning that project, not building that project. And then you need to reserve the capability if you want to, if that list of things that you said were your priorities that would lend themselves to borrowing. It's reasonable to think that the debt service on that is $1.1 million to $2 million, depending upon what you choose to do. So you have to preserve the capability to maintain that debt service. You can't obligate things now that will get in the way of you having that debt service, or you'll have to delay the other ambitions.
So I thought we conceptually talked about planning 2 more sidewalks somewhere or trails. Is that in here?
Well, no, that's not in here. So in the capital, what you've got is the projects that you've already authorized. So you authorized the Conestoga sidewalk, the Newtown sidewalk. Now, these are still planning and design level amounts. The U-shaped corridor is in construction, that one is in there. And then you've got some sidewalk planning money and you've got trail planning money. But you don't have construction for any projects, nor do you have them picked.
But next year would be planning, so we do have money next year. For 2
Yeah,
more
you have money to start the planning of that. Presumably, if you're gonna have sidewalk projects on the scale of the U-shaped corridor, you're gonna want to do them with borrowed money in
Mhm.
26 and 27.
Right.
But you'll have modest sums to get going with a recognition that it'll take you, the whole year to figure out what you want to do on it. And the one exception to that is there's the full amount for the that trail plan with Bob Thomas that the planning commission reviewed and recommended, that's ready to go. And that's done in a discrete, discernible nut where he does the report, he comes back and say, here are the links, this is the budget cost. And then that's what you use that's your input for 2026 when you pick projects.
And then the mechanism for the sidewalks, it starts with the subcommittee in the planning commission, goes up to the full planning commission, and then comes to recommendations to the board for us to consider fund, push
Well,
forward.
you do seem to have the bike ped group, and they seem to be the genesis of it. So it's probably a good starting point, right? Does it make sense? That's sort of you created it, it is sort of what you want.
It works before, and
Yeah.
I like the output, so.
And all three projects that you have before you came through the bike ped group in that exact manner. So unless you think otherwise, that's probably the best way to go. Betsy, you're on that group, right? It seems to be working in that manner.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's important to have the two planning commission people there, because their direction and their knowledge of what planning commission is talking about really helps keep the guardrails up.
So probably then the logistics of it are, there's a budget. It's passed in December. That tells Colleen how much money she has for the bike bed group to, remember, it's not like, let's pick one and let's build it. You're the first, it's like, does it make sense money? And then the second year, it's the design money. The third year, it's the construction money. So for the projects you haven't picked yet, it's a modest amount of planning money so that you emerge the year with the specifics of, we want to build a project here. And it will cost $1 million, that sort of thing.
And I thought we'd agreed roughly that we would have two in planning, two in design, and two in construction each year.
That would be great. That's a pretty good idea. So to do that, you'd have to get, right now you have one in design, which should be in construction next year. And then you have two in planning. So you'd have to take the planning ones and push them into design. And then you'd have to take the ones that are concepts and get them into the.
Right, do we have money for that next year?
Well, you have the planning level money to initiate that. You've got money to take Newtown and Conestoga to the next step.
Okay.
Conestoga is still planning money at this point because it's such a big deal.
Thanks.
All right, liquid fuels, OPEB, basically no change, some adjustments for real-time costs, a little bit more for OPEB to reflect inflation and trends. Engineering escrow, this is a pass-through that you hadn't traditionally budgeted. And you shouldn't, so it's not in this year's budget. I put it in last year's thinking we could budget it by estimating what you pass through, but we really can't. So this one is reverting back to what it was in the past. You approve all the bills, all the escrow returns, but we really can't predict the escrow. So the budget is not really an estimate of what we think the escrow activity will be. And then EMA capital, that's a project fund. You traditionally have not budgeted that. That's been used to fix things when they break. It's kind of a fix when fail. What they will do at each September, which they've done, which they're doing now, is they'll have a list of a small list of things that they get in front of. So that's the new commuter here, the new controller there, the new pump. So all of those are on that 10 to 30,000 scale. None of these are big initiatives. So they'll do the same at the EMA. They'll approve that, and then whatever they approve will be implemented in January. Okay, that's a lot. So that's the high level. You have the placeholder. That's the first pass at the particular. It's not the expectation that you need to go through it now. It's there to see it. What you're going to get next time is the placeholder with, actually, so then I thought expectation. So it's a placeholder, so expect changes, so, it won't be like, hey, well, last time it was 10, now it's 11.5. What's different? So we're still making those changes, if we're still improving predictions. So the answer would be, we improve the prediction, and the improvements will cut both ways. So it'll solidify, some of the uncertainty goes away, so everything should solidify and be better in a month, more accurate. It'll change in both directions. There's a decent amount of conservativeness to it. It has to be, right? Like you EIT in particular, we have to make conservative estimates about EIT because you don't have the cash. We're doing our best to be formulaic in our distribution, and every year we're getting better. And then it's very, very likely that you're gonna have a surplus, and that surplus is gonna manifest itself in the general fund. So it'll just be, however the math works out, I'll just assign that final surplus, the day before we publish the draft budget. And that will manifest itself as a surplus in the general fund. So far, so good, okay on that. And then consideration, so, avoid creep, like you've, is very guarded against, there's money available to do stuff. But you got stuff in 26 that you passed the EIT for 27, so you gotta be careful of that. The revenue is settled, but your spending is not, so, by assigning the EIT and by assigning the millage, your revenue is really settled. What is gonna change now is your spending is gonna go up and down to fit inside that. Fire EMS has to be decided, could cut big in either direction. Actually, it won't cut big in the positive direction. It won't be, hey, there was a big, upon review, we don't need that money. But the tendency will be, it has a capability to cut big in the expensive direction. You decide your capital items, so people approach you about what they want in capital, that has to be your choice. The capital items that we put in the budget are the ones that we interpreted you telling us you want. Format, I'm gonna take 2 years out of the actuals just because the page looks so cluttered. I don't know that you need it. So it'll look a little different than the placeholder, less cluttered. I think it'll be easier for you to read. And then, you have some uncertainty in police costs in particular because you're in arbitration. Okay, and then next time you'll get a draft budget, which will look and form just like your placeholder budget. You'll get the capital plan, which will look and form just like the capital plan that I provided you. And then you'll get the what was the third item that I had written down? Yeah, so you'll get an executive summary that I'll provide, like I did last time. So it'll mirror the form of the last executive summary. So that's the actionable item for you at the November meeting. The next October meeting is TBD. We can, I don't have anything scheduled for that. That sort of, I would listen to you all, tell me, and then in a month, you have the draft of the budget.
Thank you, Dan. Appreciate it. Why don't we move on to public comments? Is there any public comment? Yes, that's it.
Thank you, Trustee Battle. I don't know if I would say this if I were just listening, but I really want to thank all of you for being so true and honest to your goal to reduce the tax millage, the property millage, as you got more EIT. And I appreciate the mix that you showed us up there and that you're keeping the library whole. But you said that 2 years ago, and here you are, a year ago, and here you are. So thank you very much on that. To continue on what I had said earlier about next year's plan and talking about capital and any EIT money that you think is well invested in the library, I see you really are already kind of earmarking it for debt service, and that makes very good sense. We would just like to be part of that conversation in case any of the borrowing could include some library. So thank you.
Yeah. Any other public comment? Yes.
Margaret McKenzie, just on behalf of the Friends of East Town Library, I would just like to thank the supervisors and the township. For supporting the community shredding event. We had another great turnout this past weekend and it's such a wonderful community service and people were extremely appreciative. So thank you for supporting that. And the Friends are happy to continue supporting the township. If that's a priority, we would be more than happy to continue the partnership. So thank you so much.
And this is general public comment, so if anyone has come and wants to say something, they can. Or not, you don't have
Yeah.
to.
Never done this before, so.
You say your name and whether you're a East Town resident. Just so that.
So I'm Eugenia Thompson. I'm an East Town resident. I spoke with you, Mr. Curley. I think I may have gotten around a few different people in East Town. So I live pretty close to the corner of Devonwood and Station near the Devon train station, sorry. We live very close to a home that it's in a residential neighborhood. We live very close to a home that is owned by a property management company that for years has been renting out to college students, which is fine. We just found out that it's now being used as a short-term sober living facility. There are it's unknown, but there are between 10 to 15 adults living in a 1,400 square foot home. These individuals pay on a weekly basis to some organization or company that is the tenant of the home that has signed the lease. These individuals stay a maximum of 30 days before they are cycled out unless they fall off the wagon, in which case they are kicked out. The home is within short walking distance of Devereaux, the Beautiful Beginnings Daycare Center, the Primrose Daycare Center, and a lot of homes. So I think I have a number of concerns about this. Number one, from just a general township perspective, is this how we want to allow single family homes to be used? For just a general safety perspective, is it safe to have 10 to 15 adults living in a 1,300 square foot home? There was maybe a conversation, these are my neighbors who will speak as well. There was a conversation where we went to introduce ourselves and they said something along the lines of they had built in bunk beds kind of everywhere that they can in this home. So is that safe from a fire, an inspection perspective? Does that meet code? From just a personal standpoint, I have two small children who happen to accompany me today. If we have individuals, if you've got 10 people and each of them are staying a maximum of 30 days, you can calculate how many individuals are coming for a very short-term stay at this home. We have no sense of what the process is between this company that's running the house to do background checks, ensure that these people are not felons, that they're allowed to live where they are living, that they are notifying the police and the township if they are living there. There just seems to be absolutely no process in place to control this environment or communicate anything about it. I got in contact with Colleen, who gave me the contact information for the company that owns this house. They wouldn't give me any information about the tenant company, if it's like an LLC or a 501c3. I understand, having talked to Colleen, that because these individuals are all in some kind of phase of sober living, that they're technically considered individuals with disabilities, and so there's coverage and protections for them, which we understand. I guess because there is so little information about what's going on here, the definition of a family includes an option for a group of people who have a disability that are living in a home. But does the owner of the home have to live there? If the person or the organization that's running this home and is charging each person $150 a week, if they are making money and it's not a charitable organization, does that count as a single member family home? There just seems to be so much happening here that hasn't been communicated or kind of worked through. that I wanted to bring it up and hopefully, get the individuals here and others to help us figure out what to do about this situation, because it's very uncomfortable. A neighbor sent me a picture yesterday. There was one of the individuals from this home sleeping outside on a hill in the middle of the day with like trash strewn around them underneath a blanket. We're like, were they thrown out? There have been routinely been like 5 or 6 cars in the driveway, cars parked on a hill, like where there's grass. It's just a straight up banana republic. So yeah, that's kind of what I wanted to bring up.
I mean, sure. Go ahead.
My name is Kathleen Waller, I'm an East Town resident. And I mean, really, part of it, too, for me is that even though the residents of the home, at this location, 118 Old Lancaster, has turned over, we've known them. We've gone over and chatted with the college kids. There's a mother and a daughter who lived there for like 2 years. And we really are a neighborhood where we know our neighbors, and it just is really changing the dynamic of like, you never know who our neighbor is gonna be day in, day out. And there are very specific zoning codes in East Town about where boarding houses and short-term stay places can be. And residential neighborhoods are not really one of them. And I think that's because we all, like to have our neighborhoods where we know our neighbors and have that sense of community.
And I mean, what's zoning in the area?
I am looking at it with Colleen and the rest of the staff. There are, and it was mentioned, there are Fair Housing Act amendments that include disabilities, which also include people in recovery. But as the residents pointed out, there's potentially a difference between people living and operating functionally as a family, whether related or not, sharing in the normal purposes of living in a home versus a short-term transient stay. I know Colleen has asked some of those questions already to, what do I understand is tenant, and we're comparing some of that to the law and seeing what our options are. I will say East Town has been through this before with various homes, and you do have to accommodate those disabilities, but there can be a point where it into a gray area where you're turning from a group of people living in a home, even like a large family, versus a real transient situation. And then Colleen and I and staff were looking at that gray area together. So we should have.
I guess also like objectively, the definition of a single family home is, obviously it has so many different iterations, but I can tell you, like, I'm not making any money on my single family home. Those kids cost me an arm and a leg. And so if you just with no insight into how this home is being operated or who is operating it or how it's being operated, if it's a money-making kind of enterprise and internally they are building additional structures, like this house has 3 bedrooms. So I don't quite understand how there are potentially 15 people sleeping in there. I don't know if that's safe from like a zoning perspective or allowed from a zoning perspective. There was a bunch of construction.
Well, I think what Andy is saying is that we're looking into it as a township, and that's something that we're gonna address as best we can. It can be a complex issue, but PPA issues, so it's something that we're looking at and address. But thank you for.
Do you recommend we just I guess as first time involvement?
Stay in touch with me and Colleen, and you'll know what we know pretty much as soon as we know it. So there'll be elements of shared with the board before there's action. But stay in touch with us and we'll let you know the status.
And a large number of people living in our space sounds like a health and safety issue. We never seem to get involved in health and safety. I don't know why that is. Why can't we intervene on the health and safety? Like, you couldn't have 500 people in that space, right? And be safe.
Not 500.
So it's
But I think
too
you'd be
much.
surprised. I'm not an engineer, but I've learned in the past analysis, you would be surprised under building codes. A large traditional family, how many people you can put in a house. I'm not saying this is inside or over that line. But we've learned from experience because we've asked those questions in other group housing situations. So we're gonna look at that too.
Right, like there must be a minimum number of bathrooms per person or something like that, like.
You might find a lot of pre-war, post-war homes with a couple of bedrooms and one bath, so that's not unusual in a large family.
Yeah.
So that,
But
we're gonna look at it,
We're gonna do okay, 18 maybe.
but we're gonna look at it. in
Right.
Is there any other public comment? None online? Right. And moving on to announcements, there are expiring terms for our ABCs. Just give them a quick shout out. We have vacancies for the Board of Supervisors, vacancy board chair, the Citizen Communication Advisory Board, East Town Citizens Advisory Committee, the EMA, the East Town Municipal Authority, Emergency Management Coordinator, the Environmental Advisory Council, the Historic Commission, the Library Board of Trustees, Parks and Rec Board, and Planning Commission, Stormwater Management Advisory Committee, and Zoning Hearing Board. Got a lot of vacancies. Please go online, look at these vacancies. We're very fortunate to have a lot of volunteers who spend their time helping the township out in these various capacities for these various groups, and yeah, I hope everyone would consider applying. Next up is announcements. For upcoming meetings and events you can view on the township website. Do I have a motion to
Probably gonna have an exec session.
A brief executive session for litigation matters should only take about 5.
Okay,
Motion to adjourn?
thank you.
Thank you.